Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Tuesday. I hope the week is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Big week of football tonight, tomorrow, Champions League, Premier League. No Arsenal, of course. We've got to wait till Saturday before they return to action with that game against Leicester. They're still out in Dubai enjoying some sunshine. When I look out the window right now, I tell you what, it was the right call by Arsenal to get out there and enjoy a bit of sun because we have had absolutely none of it. And it is just rain, cold, grey. Definitely rather be in Dubai, I have to say. Anyway, we will talk about that as they prepare to come back from Dubai. They arrive back tomorrow, of course, ahead of the game against Leicester at the weekend. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. We're going to talk about Bukayo Saka as Arsenal released pictures of him working over in Dubai. We got the first look at that scar, pretty big, on the back of his leg after that hamstring injury. So we're going to talk about him and his possible return to action. Obviously, people beginning to get a little bit excited. Got to temper that excitement a little bit. I'm afraid can't put too much pressure on Bukayo as much as we all want him back desperately. So we're going to talk about that. Got lots of reaction from you guys on what we were talking about yesterday about whether maybe a formation change is the way for Arsenal to go in the absence of so many attackers at the moment. So yeah, plenty to get stuck into today. But first of all, before we get into any of that, I just wanted to say happy birthday to my dad. Turns 80 today. Absolute constant in my life, in my brother's life, in my kids' life. Just a true inspiration to me. Been a difficult it's been a difficult time for him. We lost my mum a while ago now, quite a long time ago now, 2014. And the way he responded to that, what he's done since then, it's just an absolute inspiration to me. Will always be an inspiration to me. 80 years old, still going so strong. As well, and slowed down a little bit. Maybe used to be one of the fastest race walkers in the country, represented England, in fact. So maybe slow down a little bit, but only a little bit. And I tell you what, if I reach 80 and I'm as mobile and as quick-witted as he still is, then I'll be very happy. Looking forward, if you're watching, Dad, you normally are. So if you are watching today, looking forward to later on today when we all get together with my brothers and have a brother. One of them's in America. So he can't make it today, but my other one. And we're looking forward to sit down, celebrating the big 8-0 today. So happy birthday, Dad. One of the biggest Arsenal fans you will ever likely to meet. Probably where I get, a lot of you say I'm positive anyway about Arsenal. Probably where I get my positivity from, because there is no bigger positive Arsenal fan than my dad. It could be the worst thing in the world, and he would still look to find the positives in all things Arsenal. An absolute stalwart of the club. And happy birthday, Dad. Love you loads. And looking forward to seeing you later. Right, moving on. Let's talk about Bukayo Saka, shall we? From one Arsenal great in my dad to another Arsenal great in Bukayo Saka. So, these are the pictures. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see them. If you're listening on podcast, I'm sure you've seen them anyway. Arsenal released some of the pictures yesterday of Bukayo working over in Dubai as he continues his rehab from that hamstring injury. Sorry, he suffered on December the 21st, a date I remember because it was my birthday. And we haven't seen him since, of course. But these pictures are impossible to look at and not get a little bit excited. Obviously, he's not training with the group. I don't think he's even close yet to be training with the group. There's still some boxes to tick, as Mikel likes to say, before it comes to that. But he looks happy, he looks strong, he looks fit, and I very much cannot wait. And I'm sure all of the Arsenal universe cannot wait for Bukayo Saka to come back fit. Now, there's lots of reports about when he's going to be back. We know that March is when Arsenal are targeted. We don't know exactly in March yet. There's talk that those sort of Champions League games maybe Manchester United might be the target. That's early March, of course, which feels a little bit early maybe, but we'll have to wait and see. All I know in terms of the date, I don't believe there is a date penciled in. He'll be looking at a date. I'm sure he'll be looking at a date. He'll want to be back as quick as possible. He'll want to be back for the Champions League, no doubt about it. But from Arsenal's point of view, you've got to be very, very careful. You cannot be rushing Bukayo Saka back. Even with the injuries they've got, there would be a huge temptation to rush him back because there's no Martinelli, there's no Gabriel Jesus. If you can get Bukayo Saka back, you're immediately a stronger team because he's your best attacker, no doubt about it. But you've got to temper that excitement and that temptation and think about him long term. Now, if you look at this next slide I'm going to show you, if you're watching on YouTube, now you can see it here. You can see the scar. People have found it. They've zoomed in on the picture, and you can see the scar just starting, right down the bottom of his leg, there, underneath his knee, basically. and disappears into his shorts. So you can't see how high that went up, but that is a serious scar that Bukayo Saka's got there from the hamstring operation he had to attach it back to the bone after it ripped clean off in that game against Crystal Palace. This was a real heavy duty, big, serious injury and a big operation he had to have. That can't be forgotten in all of our excitement and wanting Bukayo Saka back. You have to tread carefully, and I'm sure they absolutely will. The club will not take any risk. There will be a plan in place that the club are going to be working to very, very carefully. That have been working to it from the moment he had the operation, from the moment the rehab started, and he'll be continuing. And I sort of joke about the fact that Mikel always says, "Oh, there's plenty of boxes still to tick," but technically that is exactly the case. The medical staff will have that. There will be stages that he has to reach to, that he has to prove that he's reached and is capable of moving on to the next stage. And until he does that, they won't let it happen. And so there literally will be things that he has to tick, boxes that he has to tick before he can move on to the next stage. Now, these pictures are fantastic. They're great, and it's so good to see him smiling and looking happy, being around the squad again. And, March is definitely the target. That is in the plan. There's no doubt about that. That was what we were first told. It's what, I've not heard anything differently. But they have to tread very, very carefully with Bukayo Saka. The worst thing that could happen was for him to come back a little bit too soon, not quite be ready, and suffer some sort of recurrence or setback. And suddenly, instead of being out until March, you're suddenly out in for the rest of the season, which would be an absolute nightmare. He'll want to come out. I know he will. He'll be so desperate to come back. It's down to the club and the medical staff then to make sure that it's not his decision. Obviously, I'm sure he'll feel right at some point and want to play. It's down to the club to manage that. And you've also got to manage it. Mikel Arteta's got to manage it when he comes back. You think when Martin Odegaard came back, he was straight back into the starting 11, played 90 minutes, I think, against Chelsea on his first day. I can't see that with the type of injury that Bukayo suffered. I can't see that being the case for him. I think you've got to drip feeding him, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, things like that. So, but it is great news. There's no doubt about it. I think all of us smiled when we saw the pictures of him out there. And hopefully it is March. Hopefully it is as potentially his target in early March. And if it is, what a huge boost that will be to Arsenal. The thing with Bukayo is he does come back quickly. Whenever he's had any sort of injury issues, this is obviously the first serious one he suffered in his career, but whenever he's had any sort of niggling small issues that that have forced him to miss a game or two, he does come back quickly. He's clearly a very quick healer. He is, Mikel, what did he call Kai Havertz the other day? It was like a genetic powerhouse or something like that. And, Bukayo Saka falls into that category as well. What his body can do, the demands it can take and has taken, how quickly he recovers. He's a really strong guy with, fantastic recovery prowess. Fingers crossed that serves him well. And we do see him back in early March, and he can come back for the Champions League, and he can come back for the final 2 months of the season, hopefully with Arsenal still in with his chance of the Premier League title as well as the Champions League. And what a massive boost that would be to those final 2 months. So, great to see Bukayo back. I'm sure you guys are all excited about it as well. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Right, moving on to what's going on in Dubai. Obviously, the players still out there. This is their final full day in Dubai now. I'm not sure if they're going to squeeze a session in tomorrow before flying back. So this will be the final full day that they have. Maybe they'll have one more session in it tomorrow. Very jealous looking at them out there in the sunshine. The pictures certainly look like they're all having a very, very good time. I'm sure they are. You can see the squad there. Don't see Ben White in that picture. I haven't seen Ben White in any pictures since Monday or Tuesday, whenever he was first in those pictures, which is a slight nagging little concern in the back of my mind. Not heard of anything, obviously, but I was looking for him in this picture. I was like, where is Ben White? Why is he not out there with everyone else? But maybe it is a case of, you've got to tread, as much as I've been talking about, you've got to tread carefully with Bukayo Saka. You've got to tread carefully with Ben White as well. He's been out for an awful long time. And if he's feeling anything, or it's a case of maybe they're managing it. One day you can train with a squad, and the next day you can train on your own with the injured players in the gym, things like that. But looking forward to the players coming back. Mikel's press conference, as I said yesterday, is on Friday. They had a visitor during training yesterday at Dubai. Mohamed El Neni popped in, got a really good reception. If you've seen it, there's videos of him doing the rounds, going around seeing everyone getting big hugs from him when he had to do the whole run through the players that they were slapping the back of his hand. You know, universally loved player at Arsenal, Mohamed El Neni. Honestly, talk to any player about Mohamed El Neni and their face just lights up. Absolutely love him. And you could see that on his return yesterday. So good to see him back. And yeah, looking forward to Arsenal getting back this week. Going to be a bit of a rude awakening for them, as I said, given the weather that they're coming back to. But certainly looking forward to that trip to Leicester on Saturday. Right, moving on. It's pretty quiet, which is exactly what Arsenal want, to be honest, at the moment. You know, sort of taking them out of the spotlight, taking them out of the country, having their break in Dubai. And, you know, while football, there's loads of football going on, like Champions League tonight. Can't wait. Real Madrid versus Manchester City. Brilliant game to watch. But from an Arsenal point of view, especially, it's so nice to be able to sort of sit back, put your feet up and just watch this sort of game, safe in the knowledge that the team are already through to the knockout stages and don't have to be involved in these playoff games. We've got Liverpool versus Everton tomorrow. Again, so there's lots of football going on this week that can keep us all entertained. But Arsenal, you can just sort of have a bit of a break. And it does feel very, very quiet. So there's not much news stuff doing the rounds. Martin Zubimendi, of course, a player that we know Arsenal want and are hoping to sign in the summer from Sociedad. Of course, we know he's one of the most in-demand midfielders in Europe. Looked like he was going to Liverpool last season. Didn't happen. He decided to stay. Real Madrid, very, very keen on Zubimendi. We know that as well. And there are reports in Spain at the moment that Madrid are really sort of stepping up their attempts to get Zubimendi because of all the stuff with Arsenal and how they're worried that it looks like Arsenal are now in pole position for him and they're stepping up their attempts to sign him in this summer. We'll just have to wait and see. You know, Arsenal are confident they can get a deal done. Lots of work has gone on to try and get this Zubimendi deal over the line for the summer. But until it's signed, until he's here, and that classic sort of cliche of we see him holding up the club shirt and all that, it's not done. So we'll have to wait and see if Real or anyone else, mind you, of the other clubs who are interested in, can convince him that to go there. Hopefully not, because I think that'd be a really exciting signing. In a time when Arsenal, we know, are going to have to rebuild that midfield. Jorginho definitely going. Thomas Partey still looks likely to probably be going as well at the end of his contract. So there's whatever happens, there's going to be fresh midfielders, at least one fresh midfielder, potentially two fresh midfielders needed in the summer. And when you look around Europe at who the best are right now, who could potentially be available, Martin Zubimendi is absolutely at the top of that list. So if Arsenal can convince him to join, and he does resist the urges or resist the clutches of the likes of Real Madrid, then that'll be a fantastic move for Arsenal. Right, moving on to what we were talking about yesterday, impossible system changes. Got some interesting reaction to it from you guys. Very split, which is not surprising because I'm kind of split on it. I personally think I can see why it would be quite a good option because of everything I mentioned yesterday. I think the key thing for me is just having having more than one attacker on the bench to bring on in the second half, which I think could be very, very important. But then I do also think, can you really switch formation at this stage of the season? It feels very, very disruptive. Even if you are missing players, it does feel disruptive. The players are so used to playing a certain way and have done for the last couple of years, and suddenly switching to three at the back and wing backs, is it just going to take them too much time to get used to right at such a business end of the season? But there's been lots of responses to you guys from you guys as well. Coach Lance says playing with wing backs sounds good. My only concern would be defensively. We played a certain way for so long. Would the players know the defensive rotations, even on the press? Would we become more of a counter-attacking team? Scott says, let's face it, formations are just something to put on paper for us, the fans and the media, to see and talk about. No one stays in their positions anymore, and Arteta only changed the way we press, and it worked against City and then backfired against Newcastle. Look at Eddie Howe's set up against us. It looked defensive on paper, but was attacking on the pitch. Changing the way we set up does nothing for the fact that we are still missing attackers. We have two world-class players in Tierney and Zinni, who are a spare man on the bench. They can fill in for a few weeks until we get Saka and Martinelli back. Sula Dave says the only option is to find an academy attacker that can slot in for Martinelli. Ismail Kabir is a talented player. The minutes given to Sterling can be used to develop Kabir. Arteta needs to be more proactive with the youth. If we trusted MLS, the money spent on Calafiori would have been spent on an attacker. I'm not sure you could I don't think any of us expected what MLS has done. And Arteta has absolutely trusted him anyway. I don't think, I would love there to be another MLS right now in attack that we could use. And I know people will say, well, we didn't think MLS was going to be this world class, well, this generational talent type left back until we started playing him. And I get that argument, but I still do not see any attacker who is ready from that sort of age group, who is ready right now to come in and make a difference in the absence of Martinelli and something like that. They might need to be used, some of them. And so they hopefully will get some opportunities to impress, even if that's 20 minutes off the bench at some stage, just so that the players on the pitch can get a bit of a rest, hopefully if games are done and dusted by that point. But I don't really see any of them as starter material, I have to say. Max says 3-4-1-2 is better suited to our fit players. Trossard and one of Trossard and Sterling are better suited to a front two, closer to goal than playing on the wing in a front three. B, it allows Ranieri and Odegaard to rotate and not be run into the ground. And C, the left side of the back three is a better fit for Calafiori and Kivior. So you've gone Saliba, Timber as the right-sided centre-backs, Gabriel Saliba as central choices, or Calafiori and Kivior as the left-back options, or left centre-back options. And then you've got White, Timber as wing-backs, Partey, Jorginho, Rice, Marino, MLS or Tierney as the options across the midfield, Odegaard and Ranieri as the 10 options, and then the Havertz, Trossard and Sterling, 2 of those up front. Thank you very much. Smeakin says, hi, Charles. I found this an odd concept to discuss disrupting the squad further after frontline injuries by changing the system they've been working on and perfecting over the last 4 or 5 years. Seems like it's impractical, especially if your outcomes are to take an attacker out of the lineup. Just move Tierney, Calafiori or Lewis Skelly to left wing. This is just a little uncomfortable for one position as opposed to disrupting the whole team. I hope Arteta doesn't change the system. Like I said, it's interesting how the difference of opinions on in terms of how Arsenal should approach these next few weeks. I tend to agree with Smeakins down there. I do think it's probably a little bit too disruptive. I definitely think it's worth considering, or maybe in-game management, if the game state allows, you can change to a back three or something like that. But I do think maybe starting is going to be a little bit disruptive. But I was looking back at this quote from Mikel, who gave this. I think this was just ahead of the Newcastle game. He said this when he was talking about the front lines, and this was before Martinelli got injured. So this is when they still had one other option in attack to what they do now. He said, we're going to have to be very flexible in the front line. And now the ones that we have in our feet, we have to make sure they stay fit. Obviously, that didn't work out very well because Martinelli got injured in the game after this quote. He said, Leo can play in that position. He means forward. Raheem has played in that position. Ethan, I think, can play in that position. Martinelli can play there. So let's see in relation to how everybody is, the moment and the opponent. But at some point, we're going to have to try something different. Now, that was the interesting line, I thought, in that quote. At some point, we're going to have to try something different. And remember, this was before Martinelli picked up his injury. So at that point, he was thinking at some point, we're going to have to try something different with these players who are out. And now we've lost another player since that quote. So surely there is going to be definitely going to come a point where Arsenal are going to have to try something different, whether that's a false nine with Sterling playing as a false nine or Trossard playing as a false nine, or whether it's even bigger than that and it is a system change or a formation change for a game, for half a game, for 30 minutes. I think he's right. The options are so limited, they're so small that they are going to have to try something different at some point, just even if that is to give some players who have started 20 minutes rest, 30 minutes rest, which is going to be crucial during this period because they cannot keep playing 90 minutes every single game. So just run them into the ground and it will just result in more injuries. It's absolutely nailed on if that is the case. And that's it from me today, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. As always, I do appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. Until then, enjoy the day. Enjoy the football later if you're watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.